It took a while, but I am finally back. And today I'm making a Zombies story video about the Aether Storyline. Yes! Oh, wait. Hi guys, there you go, there's the intro as well. So, today, we're going to be talking about something that I actually have never seen before, and that I've been waiting for in the story for genuinely, at this point, 6 years, I think? Since 2012. So yeah, 7 years, Jesus Christ. We're talking about Broken Arrow, okay? A topic that back in the day fascinated me, absolutely fascinated me, and Broken Arrow's involvement with Rossman, and how that kind of worked with Stuhlinger, and how they knew each other, and how that then interfaced with the pilot that seemed to be bombing the facility or something, and then there was the fire or the outbreak in the facility, and it was a cover-up. There are all these things going on from 2012 that are really interesting in Black Ops 2. And then in Classified, we got little bits more information about Broken Arrow. We also got the Zombies comic, for example, as well, that told us more about the facility and what was going on there and Russman's involvement. And all that gets mixed up with Purnell, who is one of the most, if not the most OG Zombies story character there is. He was Peter McCain's handler back in the day. He's all over Classified. He's got a bunch of radios in that map that are honestly some of my favorite radios across all of Black Ops 4, if not my favorite radios across all of Black Ops 4. They're voice acted fantastically, they're written, in my opinion, really, really well, and they tell us some really interesting stuff about not only the past, the story stuff to do with Peter McCain back in the day that I always loved, but also the future, where things are going, where Treyarch are taking those story threads that we had in the past and recontextualizing them and bringing them forward into 2019 and the ending of the Aether story. I'm going to give you a quick recap of some of those radios now because I think that they're all fantastic and it's all really juicy story info. A lot of you guys probably haven't heard this in a while and it's going to be really relevant to the thing I'm going to be telling you afterwards. That's this new Zombie story find. Man, it feels good to say that. Holy smokes. New Aether story find, no less. And yeah, you need this base layer of context before we can get there, okay? So just stick with me here. I'll paraphrase. In his first radio, Purnell basically says, I told McNamara, we have the Fort Knox of Element 115 right next to our nuclear testing facility, and makes a project proposal essentially, which McNamara turns down. And he finishes the radio by saying, another Secretary of Defense, another bust for Project Broken Arrow. That was in 1961. In 63, 2 years later, he says that Schuster has been telling him all about Samantha and the outbreaks that she has caused over the years. And he's skeptical at first, he doesn't really believe Schuster, but then he's like, hold on, Schuster just mentioned the Rising Sun facility, that's where I lost my boy Peter, maybe there's something here, I'm gonna check it out. Then in Radio 3, he's like, well, okay, Schuster was right. This girl, creature, entity, this thing, this being, possesses a very real and very dangerous power. And the way they're framing this, I love it so much, man, because they're just talking about Samantha in the story in a way that they haven't really done, or they didn't really do throughout all of Black Ops 3, I would say, and it's just nice to have that kind of angle again. It was a really, really nice throwback when the map came out, and still to this day, it's fantastic. And he goes on to say, to support the fight back against Samantha, we're going to need greater access to the gold mine at Groom Lake. Project Broken Arrow is the key to all of this. 2 birds, 1 stone. We'll combat a threat to national security, and he'll secure the funding for his program and its operations. He'll present the plan to McNamara in the coming weeks. It's the next radio that's probably my favorite of the bunch, because Purnell just sounds like a crazed madman in this one. He convinces McNamara in his proposal that it's all a good idea, and then says, ha! All those hawks ever think about over there is war. Yeah, well, good riddance. They'll get their war, and I'll get my riches. They want to destroy this Samantha? It's so narrow-minded. Why destroy her when we can just take her power and harness it for ourselves? Oh, with the amount of Element 115 buried down there, just imagine what we could do. We could mold the Earth anew, create it in our image. And then he sighs and says, a toast. Here's to Dr. Schuster for gifting me this opportunity. When we get the excavator up and running at the test site, I'll be sure to get him access. Ha 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 ha. And here's to Broken Arrow. and to opening new worlds. Man, that's such a good quote. In the next couple of radios, he basically goes on to talk about zombie Richtofen, touching Richtofen, bringing him back to life, or reawakening him from unconsciousness, or however you want to say it. Those aren't particularly relevant to the stuff that I want to say in this video, but I think I'm going to come back to all of these in more detail, in more videos in the build up to DLC 3, because there's really juicy stuff there that's going to be directly leading into Nuketown and all the story stuff that's going to happen. So, with that little kind of breakdown of the stuff that Pernell has said and what his kind of angle is going into all this, I want to talk about something that has been found by a chap called Paul, also known as CreamMcGee on Twitter. Paul, as of I think this morning, has found something that, as far as I'm aware, is new to me, and it's just exciting to see something I haven't seen before and get to theorize about where this could go in the future, okay? There is a piece of paper on the map classified that's apparently all over the place. I just happened to not notice it while I was playing. That starts off at the top saying, top secret, special handling, no foreign. What the no foreign means is no foreign nationals. It's just like a security tag essentially on there. It then appears to say, internal use, broken arrow eyes only, Camp Edwards, Nevada. Now straight away, alarm bells should be ringing in your head because Camp Edwards sounds awful close to just Camp Edward, and we have a very special and particular Edward in the Zombies storyline, our boy Richtofen, right? So that's an interesting one. Camp Edwards is actually a Massachusetts military installation, but I'm going to assume that that's not actually related here. Let's keep going with the note. It's dated 11th July 1965, and it says, to General Staff, subject, Rushmore, now operational. It's got a lot of redactions throughout the message, but it says something about something being operational, creating something, broken arrow, something, those who have contributed to what will undoubtedly be a historic moment in history. Something is then said, will something else, activities of the facility remain on track, something else, and then something pilot program, they will be something or other. Phase 1, distribution of similar computers for our something, and Broken Arrow will something else. Something, operations, and introduce yourself. Not only will you something is friendly, but you will immediately see how anxious something. Cornelius Pernell, operations director. And he signed it, Cornelius Pernell. It's obviously a pretty big deal that Rushmore has been mentioned here, and I'll come back to that in just a second, but I also want to mention, in the top left corner, at last, we have a logo for Broken Arrow. We actually have a proper logo. It's an arrow that's broken. Nobody saw that coming, but I love it. It's so good to finally have a logo for this group that has been so kind of secretive and covert in the zombie story for so long. At last they're being made more official, and at last they have their own symbol to demarcate them now. Honestly, I would have been so happy in 2012 if I found this, like, in transit somewhere, maybe in the Pack-a-Punch on transit, something like that. I would have just been so chuffed, man. Because I've been waiting for this for so long. Like, genuinely, I know it's just a logo, but it puts me back in the mindset that I was in 2012, when I was just a kid. I was a child making zombies videos. I didn't know what the real world was like. I didn't know what was going on. I was naive to the whole shebang. But I was in love with this silly story that we've got going on here, and I loved the fact that it was so secretive, and I just always wanted to know more about the whole thing. And this is just a nice touch on that part of my memories, and it's cool, man. But anyway, let's talk about Rushmore. It should really be no surprise that Mount Rushmore has finally made its way into the Zombies storyline. I mean, it feels like all the cool things that are in America at some point will kind of make their way into Zombies. It's just the way that things have kind of been going. I mean, even you go back to Transit and you look at Ted, Ted's rattling off all these possible conspiracy theory sites all over the US the entire time he's driving you around. Like, that's just what Zombies is about. It's about finding cool stuff and going, hey, this isn't actually cool, this is an alien test facility, and you should be very scared. Like, I love it. That's why I got into it in the first place, right? So, Mount Rushmore, at face value, seems pretty kind of normal, pretty chill. But did you know there's a secret room behind one of the president's heads in Mount Rushmore, and the secret room was never finished? But if you maybe use your imagination just a little bit, and you do the classic Zombies move of saying, well, it was never finished publicly, you might be able to get on board with the idea that maybe what they're doing here is they're saying this unfinished secret room, this Hall of Records as it was going to be, and I'll explain more in a second about what the details of that are, but maybe this room ended up publicly being sort of pushed to the side, but in private continued being working on and then was eventually finished by Broken Arrow, as is mentioned here. So, what's actually in this secret room? What is the Hall of Records? What does that mean? It sounds pretty mysterious, right? Well, there was originally going to be like a plaque type thing put on the wall next to the presidents, giving some information about the United States and the history of it all and stuff like that. But it was decided that that wouldn't have been a good use of funds, and so instead of that panel, the architect that was designing the whole thing planned to add a room behind the carvings to hold important documents. He wanted the so-called Hall of Records to be about 80 by 100 feet, carved into the canyon behind the faces. He wanted an 800-foot granite stairway to lead into the hall, and the plan was for it to house bronze and glass cabinets containing copies of important documents, items highlighting advances in the arts, industry, and science, and busts of famous figures. There was also to be a massive bronze eagle over the entrance. This, I'm sure you can agree, sounds wild. I'll continue. Work crews had only blasted a 70-foot tunnel when the money ran short in 1939, and the architect died, or at least as far as we know, in canon at least, in 1941. The government declared Mount Rushmore complete on Halloween of that year, but the idea of a Hall of Records never fully died out. Rangers placed a repository of records into the floor of the tunnel. A granite capstone covers a titanium box containing a smaller teakwood box. 16 porcelain enamel panels that outline the story of Mount Rushmore and the architect, Borglum, are inside. The reason why each of the 4 presidents was selected are also in there, their biographies, and also a brief history of the US are also contained. The Hall of Records is not technically open for visitors, but the idea is that this will be an area that could be discovered by civilizations thousands of years from now for them to learn more about our current society, history, and kind of preserve us going into the future a little bit. So let's cycle back to the main important bit of info about this secret room in Mount Rushmore, which we now know is deeply connected to the zombie storyline, okay? Just put yourself in the shoes maybe of a Treyarch designer, or even just as a fan, all right? I want you to think about how cool it would be if we, maybe as a Pack-a-Punch location, we teleport there or something, or just as part of our whistle-stop tour of the end of the zombie story, end up in a clearing looking directly ahead at 4 of the president's heads on the wall, cliff face, whatever you want to call it, of Mount Rushmore, and instead of one of the presidents, it's Edward Richtofen. Can you imagine how nutty that would be? And then if we make our little way into that little room and we go in and we go up the 800-foot granite stairway that could have been completed in Zombies canon, and there's this hall with bronze and glass cabinets with important documents, items highlighting advances in the arts, industry, science, busts of famous figures. This just sounds like a perfect Zombies location. And they've just name-dropped the place in Zombies. I mean, even the massive bronze eagle over the entrance. Richtofen would be absolutely in love with something like that. It's just such a rich little thing for them to have thrown in. And the reason I wanted to tell you all of the stuff about Purnell at the beginning is because it's Broken Arrow that are doing stuff with this site, okay? And they've been talking about 115 storage. We know Broken Arrow is deeply mixed up with the elemental shard as well, things like that. Don't you think that this sort of area where you've got this tunnel going through the rock and then this sort of secret room below with this Hall of Records, don't you think that also could be repurposed really well into some kind of 115 storage kind of facility? Maybe it's actually just a secret research facility. There's clearly something happening there. It's not just a museum because it says Rushmore is now operational in the note. But what exactly those operations are is sort of a mystery right now. There is that mention at the end saying something about operations and introduce yourself. Not only will you is friendly, but you will immediately see how anxious, I don't know what that's really referring to. It's kind of weird wording. I'm very curious about it, but I'd love to hear your ideas in the comments down below about what they could be introducing themselves to, or what really is going on there, and who's anxious, or what is anxious, and what is friendly. Have they got something, like, caged up in there? Like, what's going on? Hard to know. Anyway, I think this is very exciting. I just wanted to make a video kind of gushing a little bit about the Zombies story and about something that I think a lot of you might have not actually seen just yet, and that gives us a new logo for Broken Arrow, which no doubt, by the way, is going to be plastered all over the walls in DLC 3. All over the walls, or at least I would assume so. I mean, at this point, Broken Arrow are going to be deeply connected to whatever the end of the zombie story is. And let's not forget that Treyarch picked up on one of the oldest kind of plot threads in Revelations and made that basically the entire ribbon on the parcel of that map. And I kind of feel like they might end up doing the same thing here with Broken Arrow, with Purnell, and with Peter, etc. in DLC 3, and mainly also in DLC 4 for the end of the whole story. I just feel like that's the direction they're going to be going in, and boy, I'm excited about it. I know Zombies has been in a rough place recently, but the game being not so fun to play doesn't mean that the story isn't fun to just dip into every now and then and go, ooh, this could be cool. I love it. Anyway, let me know in the comments if you want to see more zombie story videos like this, more explanation of radios, stuff like that. It's quite a big time investment for me. Like, I'm going to be moving house quite soon and stuff like that. So if there's not a lot of interest, I just won't bother until DLC 3 is out. But if you guys really, really want to see this, then like make sure you're dropping likes on the video, turning on that notifications bell, all those things. I mean, my channel's been, honestly, and I said this in another video the other day, in a pretty rough place recently. Like, YouTube just hasn't been notifying my subscribers of my videos, and it's just been a bit funky, but I'm hoping that as hype for DLC 3 picks back up again, we can get back into a kind of normal cadence of content, and we can hopefully dabble with some of these cool things in the future. All right, thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.